Good morning and welcome. It's 8:30. It's the first day of August 2022. It is about 64 degrees and cloudy here at Site B, but I'm sure that will change. It's August 1st, which means it's my birthday week, and it's RPG A Day 2022. RPG A Day, of course, is something I have done pretty much every year since it started. Every year they come up with questions and prompts and RPG projects every day for the month. So we'll be doing all that. And it's Steve! Working name Steve, though he doesn't respond to Steve. The OGGM's kitten. Steve says, subscribe to my vlog. All right, it's time for all the tabletop role-playing news, weather, sports, nonsense, controversy, and whatever else that will probably be interrupted by a kitten. All right, so I am set. Unfortunately, pretty much most of this news is Wizards of the Coast related. So yeah. So if you don't want to hear me talk about Wizards of the Coast, you should probably stop listening now. Or remember, if I hit 1,000 subs, not only will I adopt a dog, but I'll stop talking about Wizards of the Coast. I said so, remember? But will I? You'll never know unless I hit 1,000 subs. And if you're wondering why the camera is so wobbly, I don't know. It might have something to do with a kitten. All right. Let's check out the news. First, non-Wizards of the Coast related news. Blah, blah, blah. Modifius has announced the Young Company release of Star Trek's adventure Utopia Planet Starfleet sourcebook. Like the titular construction site from the Star Trek franchise, this sourcebook will allow players to design their own Federation starships, space stations, crafts, shuttles. So basically it's a book on building spaceships and I guess spaceship-related combat and other spaceship-related technology for the Star Trek role-playing game. It's named after, I guess that's the name of the place where they build the starships. You know, in a lot of the different movies, if you remember the original Star Trek movie, there was that place where they drove out of, and you've seen it time and time again in the different Star Trek TV shows and the different Star Trek movies, sort of a big space station, and there's like a big scaffolding thing outside, and you see the spaceships inside the scaffolding thing. So I guess that's the name of it, Utopia Planetia? Any big Star Trek geeks out there who actually know the answer to this? I am obviously not a Star Trek expert, so I can't say. Heroquest has a new thing coming out. Hasbro, as you know, has purchased the Heroquest thing from a long time ago. Heroquest is a great board game. It's a good introduction to role-playing, and it usually comes with tons of great figures. Shadzar has been going through step by step through Heroquest, all the good things and the bad things about it for the past year. So if you're interested in finding out more about Heroquest, check the link down below to Shad's Heroquest videos. But anyways, there's an expansion coming out called The Frozen Horror. This expansion is based upon, you guessed it, the snow and ice. It gives you more monsters, more tiles, more accessories, alternate figures, custom frost-themed dice, 10 new adventures, a series of solo adventures, and other stuff. So it's a big box with figures and dice and maps and adventures and more fun for Heroquest. Am I still broadcasting? Yes, I am. I gotta check because, the kitten might turn it off. There's something coming out called Skeleton Key. What is this? Is this a game? It says unlocking killer gaming experiences, Skeleton Key. I think it's a video game branch of possibly Blizzard or maybe Wizards of the Coast. This news article is really weirdly written, but I'm thinking it's a video game division. So either Blizzard has spun off a new division called Skeleton Key, or Wizards of the Coast has spun off a new video game division called Skeleton Key, which is interesting because if it is Wizards of the Coast already has a video game division. That's one of the reasons why Hasbro chopped Wizards of the Coast up and then rebranded it as Wizards Digital Media, because they wanted to associate all the D&D stuff with their video game stuff, which I believe was Activision is the company that Hasbro bought for video games. So now it looks like they're either spinning off a new video game department or renaming the existing one. I'd try and give you more information, but this is just really badly written. Okay, now we have a ton of Wizards of the Coast news regarding the movie, most of which we've gone over. The movie is an action comedy. The movie's release date has been pushed back to March of 2023, though if Wizards of the Coast is clever, they will push it back even further so they could time it to the release of the 2024 product, whatever that may be. Let's call it D&D 5.5. I'm sure there will be a special anniversary box set containing D&D 5.5 and Honor Amongst Thieves D&D in 2024. It's an action comedy. People are comparing it to Monty Python and the Holy Grail. People are comparing it to Guardians of the Galaxy. Everybody is upset that the tiefling druid has red hair and can turn into an owlbear. Nobody seems to be upset about Michelle Rodriguez is stereotyped as the green-skinned half-orc. Really, you'd think after all the crap you guys have put us through all these years about how orcs are racist, you have a Hispanic actress wearing green makeup playing a half-orc, and nobody's like, oh, that's racism. But a tiefling druid with red hair who may or may not be able to turn into an owlbear, that's got you all upset. Anyways, they did have some screenings, but they were screenings without effects. They still need to go in and add more effects and more sound effects. The screenings did not do well, so they have been pushed back. Possibly, it's been pushed back to March because they need to add effects and because, what did and did not catch in the screenings. And I'm sure most of the things were, a lot of the stuff was over the audience's head. So, that is going to be the main question, is how do you present a fully functioning D&D universe that D&D nerds will immerse and appreciate and get, but still keep entertaining enough so people who aren't D&D nerds and just want to see a fun popcorn movie can sit down and go, oh, that was a lot of fun. And then, either after ask questions like, what the fuck is a Vecna? Why did that cat have tentacles? Or just be like, you know what? It's Star Wars. I'm not going to even question it. So if we compare it to Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a perfect comparison, in Guardians of the Galaxy's the initial screenings, it was a lot of fun. The hardcore Marvel fans got all the Easter eggs, but the everyday common non-Marvel fans were like, what the fuck's that? What the fuck's that? Why is that a talking tree? So they had to go back and re-edit it and make it a little bit more approachable so that hardcore Marvel fans could just sit down at Guardians of the Galaxy, be presented with all these new characters, and still generally understand what's going on. So that is probably what's going on with a D&D movie post first screenings. More information from the D&D movie. We talked about this before. There is a gelatinous cube action figure. It is a hollow cube, resin cube, where you can stick action figures inside it to look like they're being consumed by the gelatinous cube. Then on the outside, they've glued in bits and pieces to look like the stuff that the gelatinous cube hasn't dissolved, axes. I'm sure somebody's going to complain about these because, some of the things are organic, like paper, and we know that gelatinous cubes dissolve organic materials like paper, flesh, leather, but inorganic materials like metal is left floating, which is why you can find treasure inside a gelatinous cube. So I'm sure somebody's going to say, but there's a book, and gelatinous cubes can't, if gelatinous cubes consumes a book, it'll dissolve, so you can't have a book. My main complaint is, they're sticking to the outside, and it looks kind of cheap, and it looks like things you could just pop off. I think it would have been cooler if they were inside the resin, and you couldn't pop them off. I still like the idea that you can pop it open, stick an action figure in there, and it looks sort of like it's consuming an action figure, though probably in reality it just looks like an action figure inside a resin box. I don't know. We'll see. There's some more sneaks for Spelljammer. They've showed us elves in space, what the space elves look like, and some information on space elves. Weirdly enough, space elves look more like ocean elves from this picture. So I'm not sure why of all the pictures of space elves they chose this one, because it doesn't look like a space elf. It really looks like this picture is underwater. You've got an elf, and there's this, what looks kind of like a fish. I guess it's supposed to be some type of dragon, sort of curled around him. I'll cut and paste it and put it somewhere. And then there's a window, and outside the window you see what looks like some Spelljammers and some plants. And then there's like what almost looks like bubbles. So if I didn't know this was a Spelljammer specific picture and I just looked at it, I would think this is underwater or something else, like a weird wizard's thing. Except the dragon looks more like a fish. I mean, it's got fish fins instead. So, I mean, I guess fish fins, because fish fins function better in space than dragon wings. I mean, really, it's outer space magic. So, why? Yeah. I don't know. It's a space elf. There's stats for space elves. The picture looks like underwater elf. Oh, and we have the quarterly end of 2021. 2022. Q2 2022 earnings reports for the gaming industry in general and Wizards of the Coast and specifically. Wizards of the Coast is still doing well. Let's see. So Magic the Gathering sales has increased by 11% since this time last year. Tabletop role gaming, which is both board games and role-playing games, has increased up 15% from this time last year. So if we're going to go by those numbers, this time last year, Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop gaming, which is both board game. Interesting that Wizards of the Coast is combining both their board games, card games, and D&D in one section, and then Magic the Gathering in specifically another section. So everything else that Wizards of the Coast makes that isn't Dungeons and Dragons are up 15%. Magic the Gathering specifically, and they make a point to say that Magic the Gathering is up 11% across all platforms. Again, they make a point that it's all across platforms. So that's both digital Magic the Gathering and physical Magic the Gathering up 11%. Tabletop gaming, which is all their board games, all the card games that aren't Magic the Gathering, the miniature strategy games, and of course, every role-playing game that Wizards of the Coast makes is up 15%. But it doesn't say across all platforms. So at first, this would look like somebody's going to say, D&D is making 15% of Wizards of the Coast sales, proving that it's their number one source of income, and it makes more money than the OSR, and if you don't play 5e, you're a scrub. Okay, and I can see how that could be misinterpreted, except if you look closely and actually read it line for line, it does specifically state across all platforms for Magic the Gathering, so that's both digital and visual. But all of tabletop gaming, which is everything that isn't Magic the Gathering, is 15%. So while it sounds like a lot, that's not a lot, because Magic the Gathering on its own is 11% of all their sales. But if you combine everything that isn't Magic the Gathering that Wizards of the Coast makes, including video games that aren't Magic the Gathering video games, that's 15%. Now you divide that by all the tabletop games that Wizards of the Coast makes, all the video games that Wizards of the Coast makes, the miniature games, and Dungeons and Dragons. So that's at least 4 that I can think of. I'm sure there are other things that Wizards of the Coast makes that are not Dungeons and Dragons. So just a quick stupid idiot math. 15 divided by 4. That's only about 4% of the income that Wizards of the Coast made in Q2 is Dungeons and Dragons. 4% of that is the figures, the dice, the board games, the miniature games, everything that's not Magic the Gathering. So Magic the Gathering went up 11%, D&D only went up 5%, okay? And that's including digital. All right, so anybody who's saying that D&D is making Wizards of the Coast more money than Magic the Gathering, yeah, no, it's not, because you got to look how it's written. And the revenue, and if you're saying D&D Beyond, it says specifically the revenues from D&D Beyond don't count. All right, so it's not made enough revenue yet to count towards Q2. There might be in Q3, quarter three, some of the revenue from D&D Beyond, which could affect the digital aspect. But yeah, what they're saying is, D&D Beyond so far hasn't even made enough money to count on its own. They're lumping it in that 15%. So that's very interesting. Now, if we want to know where we were about this time last year, a couple million, close to $1 billion, Wizards of the Coast was raking in by the end of the summer of last year. We know that they made at the end of 2021 about $8 billion, but of that $8 billion, most of that was Magic the Gathering money. Sorry, it just is, because Magic the Gathering is 100% profit. It literally costs Wizards of the Coast at this point in time nothing to produce Magic the Gathering. It's 100% profit. That's just facts. D&D, there's a lot of things that cuts into D&D's overhead. So of that $8 billion that Wizards of the Coast brought home last year, I know a lot of people want to fly that as the flag, saying, well, that proves D&D is king. But, when you use that argument, you leave Magic the Gathering out of the argument, which is a lie. Most of that money was Magic the Gathering money, and the rest of it was D&D board game, everything else money. So this time last year, Magic the Gathering was bringing in probably close to $2 billion, $3 billion of the $8 billion, and D&D was bringing in a couple million. Magic the Gathering is Wizards of the Coast's bread and butter. There is nothing, at no point in time will Dungeons and Dragons make more money at the end of the year than D&D, no matter what you say. Okay, even counting any money the movie might make all over. And remember, we're talking worldwide. Magic the Gathering is played all over the world. Magic the Gathering is 100% pure profit. Wizards of the Coast cannot lose money-wise with Magic the Gathering. If Hasbro said tomorrow we're dumping D&D, we're giving it to the OG GM and DM Bloodworth to take care of, it would not affect their bottom line whatsoever. Hasbro would be fine, and whoever took over D&D and ran with it would be fine. If Hasbro announced tomorrow we're dumping Magic the Gathering, that would be devastating. Their stocks would crash. Anyways, I'm going to bring it to an end because obviously my brain is not working anymore. So subscribe to the OGGM Adventures. Remember, the OGGM's new cat, quote unquote Steve, says subscribe. And how can you resist that kitten? Till next time, I'm the OGGM. That's the news, weather, and sports for today. We'll be back with the other usual nonsense. See ya.